Last year I put out two separate videos, one being on the worst player for every MLB team, and one being on the best player. This year I want to do something a little different, instead combining these concepts into a single piece of content. Much like last year, the only requirement is going to be that any player being considered must have played in at least 1/3 of the season's total games for that club, or around 54, or for starters, 10 starts and relievers around 20 appearances. That way I can actually consider things like rate stats without them being unfair due to an incredibly small sample size. Also, players do not need to currently be on the team that they're being considered for, as their performance exists in a relative vacuum. Now, let's hop into it with the AL East and the Toronto Blue Jays. They had a two-headed beast that was competing all season long for this title, although I do think it's going to end up having to go to George Springer. He finished the year with 32 homers, 84 RBIs, 18 stolen bases, and a .309, .399, .560 slash line. All numbers that were either as good or better than Vladimir Guerrero Jr., though it is obvious that the latter carried them in the postseason, along with utility man Ernie Clement. It was cool to see a return to form for the veteran who was having a multi-year fall-off as part of what seemed to be a pretty steep aging curve. The worst player is much easier to select here, being a guy who barely managed to qualify, with exactly 54 games played in Anthony Santander. The guy that was meant to be their major acquisition over the prior offseason managed to hit just 6 home runs in that 1/3 of a year, while batting well under 200, slugging south of 300, and accumulating -1 WAR, while also posting the worst OPS and OPS plus on a team that included Andrés Giménez. Just a brutal start to that contract. The Yankees bring with them one of the easiest selections we'll have all day, one that requires almost zero justification in Aaron Judge. This dude led his league in runs, walks, batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, OPS plus, total bases, wins above replacement, and set an American League record for intentional walks. Oh, yeah, did I also mention that he became the first player ever to win a batting title while crushing over 50 home runs? Here's one last stat I'll leave with you. Willie Mays, Henry Aaron, Albert Pujols, and Miguel Cabrera never managed to have a slugging percentage as high as his mark of .688 this past year. Truly nuts. New York had a couple really bad performances out of their pen, but I still do think I'll have to choose a bench player who somehow managed to get 158 at-bats despite putting up just a .152 batting average with a .241 slug in Oswald Peraza. It was so bad, in fact, that by the end of the year, he was no longer even on the team, having been traded to the Angels for basically nothing. This was the classic example of addition by subtraction, as a dude with a 27 OPS plus really can only hurt you overall. The Red Sox come in with our first example of the obvious choice being a pitcher, in lefty Garrett Crochet, who managed to lead his league in innings pitched, strikeouts, batters faced, and K per 9, allowing him to finish second in Cy Young voting, an award he almost certainly would have won if it wasn't for the downright historic exploits of Tarek Skubal, who we'll be talking about in a bit. When you're able to put up an ERA in the mid-2s while hurling over 200 innings in the year 2025, you are easily one of the most valuable players in the sport, regardless of position, and it'll be interesting to see how he continues to develop in only his 3rd full season as a starter. The Sox actually have a couple decent candidates for worst player, including midseason acquisition Jordan Hicks, who somehow had their worst B-WAR at -1.1, veteran underperformer Walker Buehler, rookie disappointment Christian Campbell, and who I'm going to end up going with, Connor Wong. His rate stats were absolutely atrocious, surely, with just a .190, .262, .238 slash line and 42 OPS plus. Yet somehow his counting numbers were actually worse, with 0 home runs through 63 games, with only 7 RBI, and 3 times as many strikeouts as walks. This was a downright embarrassing season for the only remnant left from one of the worst trades in franchise history. The Rays, up next, bring with them the youngest player we've looked at so far, 21-year-old Junior Caminero. While I do think this might have went to Jonathan Aranda had he played in a full season, he in fact only ended up getting to appear in 106 games. Leaving Junior, who crushed 45 home runs and drove in 110 to take this spot handily. He also scored 93 runs, put up a .535 slugging percentage, and 131 OPS plus. The glove obviously has to improve, and ideally you'd like to see a bit more plate discipline, but still, this young slugger has some of the best potential for impact of any player in the big leagues, courtesy of his major league best bat speed. On the flip side, the worst eligible player overall was Mason Montgomery. The lefty, despite some of the most electric stuff in the game, gave up 29 earned runs through 46 innings, coming out to a .567 ERA, courtesy of a ridiculously bad 1.65 whip. He also offset an elite 12.3 K per 9 mark with an atrocious 5.3 walks per 9, contributing to him getting dealt to the Pirates over this offseason as part of the package that also sent Brandon Lowe to the Steel City. Rounding out the East, we have one of the more disappointing teams the entire season, the Orioles. This one is actually a bit harder than you might expect on the surface, as even though Gunnar Henderson had an excellent campaign that featured 17 homers, 30 steals, a near 800 OPS, and over 5 WAR, his teammate Trevor Rogers managed to put up an ERA south of 2 through 109 innings, leading to a team best value mark of 5.5 BWAR, along with a 2.23 ERA+, a number that would have led the entire major leagues had he qualified. However, I do think I'll still end up going with Henderson just because of the significantly larger sample size, as the young middle infielder managed to appear in 154 games in comparison to just that 109-inning sample size for Rogers. As you'd expect for a terrible team, there's a wealth of options for worst player, including offseason acquisition Tyler O'Neill, pool noodle swinging Dylan Carlson, veteran underperformer Charlie Morton, and the absolute worst of the bunch, former top prospect Heston Kjerstad. This dude had a negative 1.6 BWAR, with just 11 extra base hits through exactly 54 games, a sub-200 batting average, 566 OPS, and 6 walks to 45 strikeouts. Add in the fact that he's one of the worst fielders on an advanced basis in the entire major leagues, and you have what amounts to a downright amnesia season for the former Arkansas standout. Leading off the Central, we have the Cleveland Guardians. Their best player isn't much of a surprise, being future Hall of Famer Jose Ramirez, who basically led the team in every meaningful category while finishing 3rd overall in MVP voting. He also made an All-Star team and won a Silver Slugger, as has become the norm for him. When it's all said and done, this guy could challenge for the greatest player in the history of the Cleveland franchise, despite the fact that it's been around for so long. The worst player is a little less obvious, as David Fry, Nolan Jones, and Angel Martinez all had pretty abysmal years, leading to them having to play guards ball more often than not. But none of these guys were quite as bad as Big Christmas John Kenzie Noel, who had the worst BWAR on the squad at negative 1.4 despite only appearing in 69 games. How do you do that? Well, how about by walking 4 times in comparison to 52 strikeouts, with a 162, 183, 297 slash line, coming out to an unbelievably bad 31 OPS+, the worst mark on a team that also got meaningful at-bats from Austin Hedges. Yikes. The Tigers offer yet another slam dunk pick for their best player, in back-to-back Cy Young winner Tarek Skubal. Much like with Ramirez, it'd take less time to list the things he didn't lead his respective team in, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that, instead using this space to implore the Tigers front office, who has been notably stingy in recent years, to commit some real money to a guy who is having what could easily be the best prime of any Detroit starter ever, a ridiculous feat considering some of the arms that have come through the Motor City. Their worst player hands down has to go to Trey Sweeney, who not only was one of the worst hitters in all of Major League Baseball last season, who somehow managed to appear in 118 games, registering just 14 extra base hits in that time to go along with a sub-200 batting average, sub-260 OBP, and 548 OPS, but was also somehow one of the worst fielders in the sport with a negative 5 fielding run value. For the former top prospect, it seems like 2026 is going to be a make-or-break year, for if he's capable of even being a complimentary piece on a major league team, let alone the starter he was once thought of to be. Our third straight zero consideration choice is going to be at the hands of the Kansas City Royals, and a guy who has become an undisputed top 5 best player in the game, Bobby Witt Jr. Sure, 2025 wasn't quite as good as 2024, but that doesn't mean it wasn't still downright elite, with him leading his league in hits and posting the most efficient stolen base numbers of his career to this point. He also has one of the best advanced savant profiles for a middle infielder ever, in every single capacity. More and more, he's looking like a guy in Mike Trout's mold, with slightly worse hitting, but a much better glove. On the opposite end of the spectrum, when it comes to former super prospects, we have Jack Caglione, who in his first major league season did very little to impress the Kansas City faithful, slashing 157, 237, 295, which came out to an OPS plus of 49, meaning he was less than half as productive as a typical hitter in terms of OPS. Add in the fact that he only registered 14 extra base hits in 62 games and could hardly catch a cold in right field, and you have one of the more disappointing debut seasons in recent history from a guy who is as hyped as he was. Maybe it's just a thing with the AL Central, but there's another quite obvious choice for the next team as well, with the Twins bringing along another face-of-the-franchise type player in Byron Buxton. The veteran outfielder somehow managed to play in 126 games in 2025, his most since 2017, allowing him to crush 35 dingers, swipe 24 bags while not getting caught one time, and overall post a very healthy 878 OPS. While he's not quite the fielder he used to be, he still did put up a productive FRV of 2. Due to the fact that I don't think he was prepared for a full-scale rebuild, I'm not sure if he'll still be there on opening day, but for now, he remains the type of player you'd hope to build around. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have our first relief pitcher, being Jorge Alcala. Before getting dumped mid-season, Alcala had posted an 8.88 ERA through 24 innings, giving up almost 2 base runners per frame in that time, courtesy of allowing well over 1 hit per inning and a walk rate near 6 per 9. This was a crazy quick fall-off for a guy who was, just last year, one of the more reliable arms in Minnesota's bullpen. The White Sox are perhaps our first squad without a clear value leader. I think you could make a reasonable case for Shane Smith or Kyle Teal, but instead I'm going to go with rookie masher Colson Montgomery, a player who crushed 21 home runs in his first 71 games, to go along with an impressive 840 OPS, 130 OPS plus, and 529 slug. The swing and miss problems that followed him in the minors certainly were present, but I do think they will be offset somewhat by the truly impressive advanced numbers on the fielding front that he managed to post, with 6 FRV in his limited appearances. If he can hit his ceiling of an Adam Dunn who sticks at shortstop, he could be a lot of fun to watch for years to come. You know what wasn't fun to watch though? Anything and everything Josh Rojas did this past year, somehow managing to be last in almost every major category on a team that lost over 100 games, while also playing some really bad defense at multiple positions. Even if batting average isn't as important as it once was, you're just not going to cut it in the big leagues posting a 180 mark through 69 games if your slugging is also 259. Our final division of the American League, the West, is led off by the Mariners and another outright slam dunk pick in the big dumper himself, Cal Raleigh. What can you even say about this past season that hasn't been said by somebody else? The dude hit 60 home runs as a switch-hitting catcher, breaking what felt like a million records along the way, while simultaneously managing to walk 97 times, put up an OPS near 950, and an OPS plus near 170. Hell, the dude even played really good defense on an advanced basis and swiped 14 bags. I wouldn't have been mad if he claimed the MVP trophy, and I do think he has a chance to be the first catcher to be able to do so in 2026 since Buster Posey, almost a decade and a half ago. It's kind of funny to say this considering how his season ended, but I do think the worst overall player for Seattle in 2025 was former sophomore standout Bryce Miller, who followed up a year with a sub-3 ERA by posting a mark near 6 in this regard, to go along with just 74 strikeouts in 90 innings, giving up 17 home runs along the way. He was heavily affected by injuries, so hopefully this ends up being more of an aberration in a solid career than a sign of any kind of negative downward spiral, as I still do think he has all of the makings of a decent number 3 starter. Pretty much everything that could have went wrong for the Astros did go wrong in 2025, with one of the biggest single examples being the amount of time that Yordan Alvarez was able to spend in the field, as he didn't even qualify for consideration for this list. Instead, it's going to come down to the performances of Hunter Brown and Jeremy Pena, and honestly, I don't think I want to pick between them. I would consider them tied. Brown, for his part, was able to make 31 starts, finishing third in Cy Young voting courtesy of an ERA south of 3 and an extremely impressive K rate. Pena, who was only able to appear in 125 contests, still had some of the best advanced numbers in the entire sport on a rate basis, to go along with career highs in pretty much every statistical category. If the Astros are going to be good in 2026, it's going to come down to these two players doing what they did this prior season, along with a return to health from their big lefty. Their worst player, Chas McCormick, reminds me a little bit of Connor Wong. Not only did he have an atrocious 210, 279, 290 slash line, and abominable -1 WAR, he also only managed to hit a single home run in 64 games, to go along with 5 RBIs, 5 and 5 doubles. It's hard to believe that at one point, this dude was considered a breakout player in the making, because over the past 2 years, he's been downright unplayable. The Rangers are another team I would consider a big disappointment given the amount of money that they invested in this roster, just to go out there and be around 500. With this being said, they were not without standout performances, like those posted by Wyatt Langford, Corey Seager, Nathan Eovaldi, and who I'm going to end up going with, Jacob deGrom. WAR and ERA Plus don't like him nearly as much as some of the other guys in this list because of the park that he plays in, but I'm not going to take that into consideration very heavily. The dude just managed to, at the age of 37, post an ERA south of 3 in 30 starts while punching out over 9.5 batters per 9 and walking less than 2. Sure, if Eovaldi managed to throw another 30 or 40 innings or so, I think he would have taken the spot, or if Seager managed to play in another 20 games, but I can't in good conscience give this to somebody who played about 2/3 of a season when you have somebody else who had the kind of year that Jacob did. Their worst player was another veteran, this one being 33-year-old Jock Peterson. What a ridiculous fall off from the lefty, whose OPS went from over 900 all the way down to 614, and his average from 275 to 181. Literally every single number you can conceivably post was worse for Jock than it had been in the prior season, whether it be of the counting or rate variety. Thankfully, there was some level of bounce back in the second half, but It's still looking like that contract the Rangers gave him last offseason will still go down as yet another sunk cost by a Texas front office that has had quite a few of those in recent years. The A's spent another season as one of the most fun bad teams in baseball, parlaying their Little League park into an absolute glut of home runs, with no one taking advantage of this hitter's paradise quite like rookie Nick Kurtz, who managed to crush 36 long balls through his first 117 games played in the bigs, helping him to post an OPS over 1,000 and an OPS plus of 173. It's kind of crazy that on a team with a couple other notable young sluggers like Tyler Soderstrom and Shea Langoliers, that this selection really wasn't even a question. But that's just how good Big Amish was in his first taste of big league action. Heck, he even managed to arguably have the greatest game in the history of the major leagues versus the Astros mid-season. As you might expect given their environment for pitchers, our selection is indeed going to be a hurler, with Osvaldo Bido posting an ERA near 6 with a FIP that was somehow even worse. Take your pick of any number you'd like. Less than 8 strikeouts per 9, yet a high walk rate, a 1.6 whip, 93 hits allowed through just 79 innings, so we could go on and on. But I'll just end it on the note that if the A's ever want to be taken seriously in the West, they're going to need to dramatically improve their overall stock of arms. And now, rounding out the American League as a whole, you have the Los Angeles Anaheim Angels of California. They have honestly 2 pretty slam dunk options for us to take a look at in both categories, as no one really came close to the overall production that shortstop Zach Neto was able to put up in 2025, crushing 26 homers, swiping the same number of bases, and putting up the second best totals in the entire team in both OPS and OPS+. His numbers fielding-wise are kind of divisive, as Baseball Reference thinks he's elite, and StatCast thinks that he's actually below average. But at a minimum, he is a guy who plays up the middle, and he is indisputably very impressive, and obviously the best player in the squad. You can pretty much take everything that I just said that was positive about Neto and reverse it for their worst contributor, Jack Okonowitz, who might have been the worst starter in all of the major leagues, posting to a near 7 ERA through 111 innings pitched, giving up a ridiculous 136 hits along the way, while also walking another 58 batters, leading to a, get ready for it, 1.75 whip. You heard me correct. That's essentially 2 hitters per inning on average that we're reaching. And what made matters even worse is the guy didn't punch out almost anybody, striking out just 72 hitters in that time. He still does have elite velo, as well as a breaking ball that looks like it could be decent, but if he continues to pitch like he did last year, there's simply no telling how long of a runway he'll be able to maintain for himself. Leading off the NL, we have our second instance where I wanted to point out a tie, because I just don't think it'd be fair to choose between Christopher Sanchez and Kyle Schwarber for the Phillies, considering that one played all 162 games while blasting a league-leading 56 homers and 132 RBIs, finishing second in MVP voting, while the other ranks second in Cy Young voting with a 2.50 ERA and over 200 innings pitched, while punching out over a batter per frame and racking up 8 BWAR. Both were absolutely integral to this team's success, and if you take away either, I think there's a reasonable argument they don't even win 90 games. As for their worst player, I don't know how you could pick anybody but a dude who was brought in to, at one point, be their closer, yet somehow posted an ERA north of 8, giving up 39 earned runs in just 42 2/3 innings, in righty Jordan Romano. Did you know that he gave up more home runs with 10 than he registered in total saves at 8? In fact, he was so bad that there's an argument that he not only was the worst player in the city of brotherly love, but the worst overall pitcher in the entire sport who spent any amount of time in the back end of a bullpen. For being a team that won just 83 games, the Mets actually had quite a few standout players, among them being Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and Edwin Diaz. However, none of these guys quite managed to accomplish what their $700 million man Juan Soto did, crushing 43 homers, swiping a nationally leading 38 bases, walking 127 times, and leading his league in on-base percentage for the 3rd time in his career. It's even crazier when you consider the fact that he arguably had one of the unluckier seasons for any player in 2025, meaning there could potentially be much more to come for the future Hall of Fame lefty in 2026. They also had quite a few pitchers that were downright horrible, like Sean Manaea and Ryan Stanek, but I'm going to have to give this one to mid-season acquisition Ryan Helsley, who posted an ERA of 7.20 through 20 of the season's biggest games for his new squad, giving up nearly 2 base runners per frame and 4 crucial home runs, leading to him solely taking 3 losses. You know how many games they missed the playoffs by? Exactly 1. And those are just the contests he actually factored into on the stat sheet. There were quite a few more that he handedly contributed to sinking as well. The ascendant Marlins did better than I think pretty much anyone expected them to last year, and it was partially due to the incredible efforts of one Kyle Stowers, who led his entire team in value despite playing in only 117 games, courtesy of crushing 25 home runs with a 288, .368, .544 slash line, coming out to an impressive OPS of .912 that was nearly 50% better than league average. What's more, all of his numbers seemed pretty sustainable given how impressive his advanced profile was. Their worst player was another relief pitcher, this one being George Soriano, who, like Romano, happened to have an ERA over 8, giving up 11 hits per 9 with over 4.5 walks, while not even managing to strike out one batter per inning. The stuff still looks good, so I do think he has a chance to be at least a middle relief guy going forward, but man, one more campaign like this, and I don't think there's going to be pretty much any chance he remains on a club that pretty soon will have postseason expectations. The National League's version of the Orioles, Atlanta, had little go right for them this past season, including seeing many key contributors deal with prolonged stretches on the injured list, including but not limited to Chris Sale, Ronald Acuna Jr., Austin Riley, and Spencer Schwellenbach. However, one guy who managed to play in all 162 games while managing to lead his league in doubles was Matt Olson. It does seem likely he'll never get back to the power he showed off during that ridiculous 2023 season, but he still did manage to tally 72 extra base hits with 95 RBIs, 91 walks, and an .850 OPS, helping him to a team-best 6B WAR. The only thing additionally I want to add here is that if he again has this title at the end of 2026 instead of Acuna Jr., you'll know something has gone horribly wrong. On the flip side, Atlanta's worst player had to have been veteran Alex Verdugo, who in 56 games didn't manage to hit even a single home run, while posting a slash line of .239, .296, .289, coming out to an OPS plus of 67, a mark that was second worst in the squad only because Nick Allen spent significant time in the field. The difference between Verdugo and Allen, however, at least Nick offered some elite glove work. Alex, meanwhile, put up one of the worst defensive performances in the sport at his position, with -5 fielding run value through just 426 innings in left field. The Nationals might be in one of the worst positions of any team in the sport in my opinion, as they only had 3 players last year with a wins above replacement total over 1.5, being Mackenzie Gore, CJ Abrams, and the player I'm going to end up going with as their absolute best, James Wood. The hulking lefty managed to crush 38 doubles, 31 home runs, and put up 94 RBIs and 85 walks, despite punching out a major league high 221 times. The dude is an absolute freak when it comes to his batted ball data, having perhaps a top 5 most evident raw power profile in the game, and he really just needs to see improvements in his glove work and ability to make contact to fully realize his potential as an MVP level player. There's a couple decent options for their worst performer, including reliever Eduardo Salazar, starter Mitchell Parker, and rookie Brady House, but my gut tells me to go with House here, with his prospect pedigree being as good of a tiebreaker as any. This is a guy who for years now has had significant hype in the minor leagues, only to come up and in 73 games, punch out 78 times while walking only 8. With his anemic .252 on-base percentage and .322 slugging percentage having him ranked as one of the worst overall hitters who took that many plate appearances in the entire season. Add in the fact that he only managed to lift 4 balls out of the ballpark, and it just seems hard to believe a dude who previously had so much hype in prior years could put up numbers this bad over the amount of games that he played. Hopping to the National League Central with the team that won the most games during the regular season of any squad, the Brewers, we were presented with a pretty tough choice, as Milwaukee had both an outstanding all-star infielder in Bryce Terang and pitcher in Freddie Peralta. I think I'm going to end up choosing the same approach as with the Astros and Phillies, essentially having them split this, as even their wins above replacement totals of 5.6 and 5.5 were essentially identical. The major highlights for Bryce were his massive improvements he made in slugging, leading to a near 800 OPS and 121 OPS plus. And for Freddie, it was his always elite strikeout rate that yielded 204 punchies in 176 innings, helping him to post a 2.7 ERA. And for whatever this is worth in 2025, a National League leading 17 wins. As you'd probably expect based on how the Brew Crew traditionally likes to construct their teams, there actually isn't a ton of options for their worst performer, with only really one guy having an overall horrible season in lefty Tyler Alexander. The soft-tossing veteran posted an ERA of .619 through 36 games, giving up well over a hit per inning while striking out around 7 and walking a few too many guys. It wasn't nearly as bad as most of the other examples we've looked at, but it was probably the worst on their squad. The Cubs have one of the more tightly packed top of the rosters we'll look at today, with 6 separate players having 4 or more B WAR in 2025. Out of the available options though, I do think I'm going to end up having to go with Pete Crow Armstrong. Not only did PCA finish top 3 on his club in runs, hits, doubles, triples, home runs, RBIs, stolen bases, and slugging percentage, but he also had one of the best advanced seasons we've ever seen from an outfielder, breaking the all-time record for 5-star catches in a season handedly, while putting up 21 fielding runs in total per Baseball Savant. Ben Brown is going to end up being one of our more peculiar choices today, even if on the surface it may not seem like it. After all, the dude had a -1.6 WAR, .592 ERA, and nearly 1.5 base runners allowed per inning, but Under the hood, he also struck out nearly 4 batters for every one he walked, and had a fielding independent pitching mark of 4.08, indicating that he probably suffered some really bad dumb luck out there. I think he actually has a good chance to rebound in 2026 if he can just manage to get an absolutely atrocious average exit velo down and get a few more bounces to go his way. I think pretty much everyone in Cincinnati thought that this spot would go to Elly De La Cruz for the foreseeable future, but unfortunately for him and those fans, he overall disappointed a bit in his third MLB season, not managing to crack an 800 OPS, 25 homers, or 40 stolen bases. It's for this reason he left the door wide open, and Andrew Abbott walked right through it, pitching to a sub-3 ERA through 166 innings, coming out to an ERA plus of 159, first on his team among pitchers who managed to throw at least 110 frames. If Hunter Greene had managed to make even 25 starts, this probably would have been his to lose, but I just can't reasonably see giving it to him when he threw 10 less games than Andrew. Arguably the only hitter in Major League Baseball that got close to the pitiful hitting performance posted by the aforementioned Nick Allen in 2025 was the Reds' Santiago Espinal, who in 114 games didn't manage to hit even a single home run, while only driving in 16 and swiping 2 bags. This led to him posting a team worst wins above replacement total of negative 1.4, a mark over doubly worse than anybody else who was eligible. Little fun fact about Santiago, he actually was an all-star back in 2022 with the Blue Jays. That's a free Immaculate Grid high-rarity score pick for anybody who wants it. The Cardinals didn't have a single player on their roster who had anything close to a truly exceptional season, though they did have a few that were pretty good, including those posted by Wilson Contreras, Ivan Herrera, Alec Burleson, and my personal choice for this pick, Brendan Donovan. He managed to pace the team in value while being among their leaders for every major stat besides home runs and RBI, courtesy of an old-school approach that sees him rarely strike out. Add in the fact that he spent at least 40 innings at second base, shortstop, and left field, and you have a certified quality utility guy. The antithesis of said quality was whatever the hell Jordan Walker was doing last year, as he pretty much struggled in every conceivable way an MLB player can, striking out way too much, not really walking, only popping 6 home runs in 111 games, and putting up overall an OPS plus of 66, just over half of what a typical hitter does. Did I mention that he was also one of the worst fielders in the major leagues in right field, with an FRV of -6? Time is running short for this former top prospect to show that he's anything more than a quad A player. I don't even really have to give much justification for who the Pirates' best performer was, as it's pretty self-evident when you take even a surface-level look at the numbers. Yeah, Paul Skeens led his league in ERA, ERA+, FIP, WHIP, and home runs per 9. He also struck out 5 times as many batters as he walked. All of this culminated in the 23-year-old in just his second big league season, winning a Cy Young Award, a trophy that will be his to lose for what seems to be the next half-decade at least. Jack Sawinski, meanwhile, brings with him the lowest batting average we've looked at today, as in 59 contests, the former slugging outfielder batted just, get ready for it, 147, contributing to a 534 OPS and 51 OPS plus. This continues a downtrend that has seen him since the beginning of 2024 in about 150 games, hit just 12 homers, with an average in the mid-100s and -2 wins above replacement, a recipe that's sure to get him either traded to another team or perhaps even outright released if he can't find some way to get it going again in the early days of 2026. And now, leading off our final division of the video, we have the Dodgers, and another incredibly obvious choice. As on a team with perhaps more future Hall of Famers than any other, one guy still managed to rise head and shoulders above the rest, in Shohei Ohtani. Not only did he lead his league in runs, slugging percentage, OPS, OPS plus, total bases, and intentional walks, he also managed to crush 55 homers, walk 109 times, register 9 triples, and swipe 20 bases. And that's not even considering what he managed to put up on the mound as well, with his ridiculously low 1.9 FIP coming as a result of 62 Ks and just 9 walks through 47 innings pitched. This dude's probably going to win another MVP, barring anything crazy happening in 2026, as he's now currently on a 5-year run in which he's won 4 separate Most Valuable Player awards, including 2 in each league. 2 veteran underperformers make up our principal candidates for LA's worst player, meanwhile, with Tanner Scott somehow giving up 11 homers through just 57 innings pitched, leading to an ERA near 5, and some of the biggest blown saves in recent Dodgers regular season history. However, it's somehow the other guy that I think has to take the cake here, with Michael Conforto having one of the worst 138 game samples you'll ever see, registering in that time just 12 homers, 36 RBIs, and a 199, 305, 333 slash line. All of this coming from a player who, prior to 2025, had only posted a below league average OPS plus a single time back in his sophomore season as a 23-year-old. All I can say is, I don't think he's going to be getting another 1-year, $17 million contract offer this offseason. The Padres actually have a deceptively tough choice here for their top player, as well you might think it's a pretty open and closed case of Fernando Tatis Jr., who led or was among team leaders in pretty much every major offensive category, including runs, home runs, RBIs, stolen bases, and OPS, along with some elite glove work in right field that netted him his second Gold Glove in 3 years. It's actually pretty close because Nick Pivetta was right up there in terms of overall production, pitching to a 2.8 ERA through 181 innings with an impressive 190 strikeouts and sub-1 whip. I think for this reason, I'm going to end up having to go with the tie here as well, as even though Nando is downright electric, Pivetta certainly deserves to have some shine as well. San Diego's worst player certainly didn't have his respective fan base saying OMG in 2025, with Jose Iglesias seeing his batting average, on-base percentage, and slugging percentage all fall by around 100 points, resulting in an OPS that dropped by nearly 250. Get this, his OPS plus of 66 was literally less than half of what it was last year at 136. He was last on the squad in value, and to top it all off, he actually was subpar in the field as well, something that's always been a strength for the now utility player. The Giants' best player, I think, was relatively straightforward, even if they didn't have an upper-tier elite season in Logan Webb. The 28-year-old led his league in innings, strikeouts, and batters faced, pairing with this an impressive 3.22 ERA and 2.60 FIP. It's getting to a point where I see him as the pitcher version of a marginally worse Jose Ramirez, the type of hurler who will finish at least top 5 to 10 in Cy Young voting every single season, while never really coming all that close to winning it. Though, I will say, if he continues to punch out hitters at the rate that he did last year with 224 and 207 innings, he may very well be able to sneak into this award if a couple other major contributors either slump or deal with some kind of injury. Their worst performer wasn't nearly as bad as most of the other players we've talked about today, with Hayden Birdsong and his 4.80 ERA in 65 innings leading to him ranking as the lowest on the team in terms of overall value at negative 0.64. It's not like his numbers were good. He had a near 1.5 whip, a fielding independent pitching mark near 5, and 37 walks. But it's also not like there wasn't some things to like as well, including 68 strikeouts in that time. This is one of the few players on our list today that could reasonably become a decent major league contributor as soon as this upcoming season. The Diamondbacks, who finished a game under 500, had to have been one of the season's most disappointing teams overall, though this was not because of any kind of lack of a production from the top half of their lineup, which featured a staggering 3 separate players who all posted at least 4.4 WAR and a 136 OPS plus or better. But of Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, and Geraldo Perdomo, I think I'm going to end up having to go with their shortstop, who led the entire National League in value at 7, while being one of only a handful of players with at least 70th percentile totals in fielding runs, base running runs, and batting runs per savant, helping him to post a 290, 389, 462 slash with 20 homers and 27 stolen bases. I'm not sure how sticky this is going to be going forward, but nonetheless, it doesn't take away from how impressive his 2025 really was. Their worst player could honestly just be given to the bullpen in general because of how terrible they were, but instead, because we do have to highlight one single guy, I'm going to select Jake Woodford. The 28-year-old with a career ERA around 5 didn't do much to raise his stock for the D-backs. As among hurlers who managed to throw at least 30 innings, his 6.44 ERA, 5.7 strikeouts per 9, and 11.1 hits per 9 were all the worst on the team, leading to him individually taking losses in 4 separate contests, games that, if Arizona would have managed to pull out, could have propelled them to a playoff spot, at least if you ignore the relative butterfly effect. And finally, rounding out our video with the worst team in Major League Baseball, and perhaps the worst team in Major League Baseball history, we have the Colorado Rockies. For a squad that was so unbelievably bad, they still did have one very solid player in catcher Hunter Goodman. Even though he came into the season with just 93 total games played, he managed to hit 31 homers, one of the top marks in the major leagues at his position, while batting a respectable .278 with a .520 slug, leading to him making the All-Star team and winning a Silver Slugger award, even if I do think it was pretty clear this should have went to Will Smith. While there's not much good in the Mile High City right now, Hunter and his skill set certainly are a bright spot. As you'd probably expect given how bad this team was, there is an absolute abundance of options here for their worst player, as they had 7 pitchers alone who managed to throw at least 30 innings with an ERA north of 6, with 3 of those being over 7, and 3 separate position players who had wins above replacement totals worse than -1. Yet among this absolute embarrassment of embarrassments, the worst had to be first baseman Michael Toglia, who somehow managed to pair a 190 average with a 611 OPS, leading to a 61 OPS plus through 88 games in Coors Field. Add in a nearly 40% K rate and -8 fielding run value in essentially half a season, and you have nothing redeemable for the former first-round pick. Alright, that was every MLB team's best and worst player in 2025. Let me know how you feel about my picks, as well as any other suggestions for videos done in this vein. Alright everybody, if you made it this far, I appreciate you watching, and if you did, consider checking out any of these other videos on your screen right now for other content just like this. Also, if you ever see anything you'd like to see me detail in the video, feel free to reach out to my email, basebpoet@gmail.com, and if I end up using your idea, I'll give you a shout out. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day.